What's up, Liron here. Thank you for joining me in another episode of Painting Masters, episode 40, big celebration. Today I want to share with you artwork by Rob Candy, a Melburnian watercolor painter from Australia, obviously, and a very classic kind of impressionistic style. What I love about his work is how he's able, it's just the perfect work for studies because he's able to simplify the scene and dumb it down in such a clever way that even as a beginner, you can tackle it as a painting subject if you do a master study based on his work, which we're gonna do actually in a future video. I'm gonna show you a study of his work. So with that being said, let's get started and look at some of his paintings. So let's get started. I thought it would be fun to just show him first and some of his work, probably at a workshop or a class. Beautiful works. Now let's zoom in and look at some other work. So I thought I'd start with something very typical of what you see of his. Lots of boats, lots of marine and seascape and beach related subjects, which I love. I absolutely love these kinds of views, and I like his approach. It's very simplistic. As I mentioned, the main thing here is the simplicity. There's just a couple of ripples in the ocean. The rest of the beach is just some combination of wet and then later on some dry brush for conveying probably the sand's texture. And the boats themselves also have been done in a quite simplistic manner, but still that really conveys the reference well. Some use probably of opaque paint here and there. This is a very typical scene of his. Now, let's look at some other ones. So here's a typical subject, but what you'll also see from him sometimes is these highly atmospheric scenes in which the colors have been distorted, and it really makes you feel something like a sunset or just the break of dawn or special hours of the day, special weather conditions. That I love the way he pushes these, and still the structure is quite simplistic. An initial wash, some wet in that, then moving on to a very simplistic additional wash for the background details and for the main boats, and the boats are essentially connected to the reflections. Very still water in this one, beautiful. And let me show you another very atmospheric scene, and this we're gonna paint in an upcoming video. As I'll be in New York, I recorded it in advance. I'm gonna show you how I paint this beautiful boat scene, and how good of a job he did in simplifying it for us and making it easier for us to paint. Okay, here's another one. This kind of reminds me of rural France, because I do believe I've seen Joseph Zbukowicz paint a very similar scene, though I can't say obviously if it's the same one, but very beautiful once again, reflections. Notice how this boat is contained within the larger reflection of the buildings and the trees, and it works really well. This simplicity always wins. It always wins. It's just so important to have that aspect. And I love the way the water really flew, and he let them flow. He probably injected more and more water to have it move down and create this beautiful effect of, I don't know if it's like weathered buildings or, just the line where maybe there's a wall and that leads to the water surface, and those are the reflections, top and bottom. Just beautiful work. The sky has gone through a very simple treatment, so just beautiful. Here's one of my favorites here, really. And by the way, I don't know if you can see these weird bars. I have a problem with my Mac. It's gonna be in the lab soon again to fix it. But in any case, this is one of my favorites. Just if that was a car horn. If I zoom out a bit, you'll see how realistic this is. There's this nice punchy contrast between the ocean, that the places that reflect the sunlight are almost white, and you can tell how the people layered in front of that white color that's almost probably the paper white, creates this beautiful effect in a very clever way, and I just love it. So simple. A dog, some people, some parasols. It looks amazing. One of my favorites, and I can see the transparency in the parasol's colors. Just genius, really. One of my favorites. Here's another clever one with all the masts. Just a differently structured scene with all of the background done wet in wet. Just the sky and then this whole mountain or foliage ridge, wet in wet. Injections of red and orange and yellow into it to maybe hint at some structures within the forest or whatever that is. And that works just beautifully well. Very simplistic approach with the ripples on the water that I love. I think water can be a challenge, and a lot of people try to get the very even look with the ripples, and sometimes you don't need to go too far, and just hinting at it this way can go a long way. But he did leave beautiful white reflections for the lighter parts of the boats. Very clever the way he did that, especially with these two at the front. Notice how the shape of the reflection follows the shape of the boat very closely, actually, so very good job. Let's see what else we have here. I love the cleverness of this, layering these very light masts and with the dark background. A very common thing, nothing special, but the execution, nothing special in the idea realm, but the execution is so good. So I love that. Here's one that's not as typical, so I wanted to show you some different scenes, this time of cows in a rural area. This really reminds me of some of his book, which is works, but obviously a very different handprint, if you will, very different signature style, transparency, treatment of the contrasts. Joseph Z tends to push these contrasts even more, and I actually like the softer contrast here. Conveys a nice mood, maybe midday. I love it. Let's see what else we have here. This is also one of my favorites. I wanted to save it for the close, almost last. But the main, I guess, focal point here would be these couple of rocks that are close to us, and notice how he treated these reflections there. It's like a wetter version of the actual rock, with lots of mini blossoms and touches of unevenness that is almost seems to be deliberate, like completely deliberate. And that works really well. Then obviously we have the rock formation at the back and the sea. That just, again, very simple treatment, just a couple of white ripples for the waves crashing against well, they're not crashing really here, maybe a bit. And then the sky is also quite simple with these several clouds. Just a beautiful, simple composition. You could add a person here and there, but you don't have to. It still looks very pretty and very smart in the structure and composition, how he carries you through the painting in a zigzag sort of manner all the way through into the ocean. I just thought it would be nice to end with a couple of one of his painting, and then I'm going to show you a similar painting to this one. Not the exact same one, but a similar one. But he works a lot plein air, which is, I think, an important factor in improving and getting better, as being in front of the reference. Here it is, another one, very similar to the style of this one that he did here, you see. So this is the boats, and the view is also very similar, and here is another take on that. Probably the same scene, just a different angle or a different place within this dry docks. And I think that's the last one. We'll wrap up with this one. I hope you enjoyed this, and one thing I absolutely take from this is the simplicity. Simplifying and then focusing on what you did decide to leave in and putting your all into that. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and now let's wrap it up. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget, I'm going to put down below links to his website. You can read more about him. I don't talk too much about the artists themselves. I usually just add the information below and talk more about their art. That's what I really want to shine, and later on you can make your own research unless there's a very interesting story. As I mentioned, I will do a study based on a painting of his in a future video, and I think it's going to be a really good one you're going to enjoy. Okay, so thank you so much. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe if you still haven't. I have tons of videos like this one and others. I want to thank you once again, and I will see you again in the next vid real soon.